everybody. So, welcome back to episode number 2 of Ann and I having a discussion. And tonight we're going to get into the more of the rumor of how this whole story started. I didn't want to say the PID word. We might have to come up with our own tagline, Ann, for the replacement.
I think that's a good idea, Marianne. We'll have to come up with something for sure.
For sure.
Yes, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, so we thought we'd just take another look at the rumor that broke in 1966 in London. Again, this did not start in the United States. This was not our idea. This rumor came over to us by the way of England. And we're going to explore how that rumor came to the United States a little later on. That's going to be another subject because it's very detailed.
Yeah.
And we only have a limited time. So we just wanted to revisit this rumor and let the folks out there know that where this all came from and what was going on here in the United States. While in England, rumors of Paul's death was going around, and then he married Jane Asher, and then he was breaking up the Beatles, and how those denied.
Crazy things.
Yes.
First he's married, then he's divorced, then he's like breaking up the Beatles. It was just like, this is crazy.
It was totally crazy. Totally crazy. And there was, and over here, we just didn't know what was going on. We didn't have the internet or anything like that, obviously. So news took longer to come over. So what I found in the research is a magazine called KYA Beat with a picture of George Harrison on there. And Marianne's going to put up a photograph. I'm going to
try and do this. Yeah. I need to go to. I want to share this. And I want to minimize all that. Minimize that. George.
Yeah, that's the one. I have a copy. We have a copy of this in our research piles. So yeah. KYA Beat was out of San Francisco. It was like a rock newspaper, just letting everybody know what's going on still in the rock world. And the article with George Harrison, the very last paragraph, basically the article was just saying that George was over in India, studying the sitar, and John was making How I Won the War. And the very last paragraph to the article reads that the whereabouts of Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney are assumed to be in London. So this was October 22nd, 1966. Again, we don't know where Paul is, and it's just assumed that he was in London, but we don't have any photographs, and we really don't know where he is over here in the United States. So while this is going on here in the United States, we have another newspaper. Marianne, the next slide, please.
Okay, let me go over here to
Spain.
Close this one.
Yes, that's the one. Thank you, Marianne.
You're welcome.
So this article was released on Friday, October 28th, 1966. It's New Musical Express. It was an English newspaper. And here we have John talking about his film in Spain that he was doing, and he was asked what Paul was up to. And he said that Paul bought a new home in North London, which was built in 1830, at the time when elegant homes were built. He is so busy decorating it that he's finding little time to do anything else, although I hear he's writing the music for Hayley Mills picture, which was a family way.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have John telling us that, Paul was very busy, decorating his home and doing a film score. So I'm not sure when John gave this interview, but it was published October 28th, 1966.
So more than likely it was probably the week before is what I would guess for publication time of print in that time frame.
Yes, I would say in that time frame. Yeah. Yeah. So we have him at least until October. Again, I'm not really sure on how far we go.
And we got to look at it as we're going by what John's saying, not what's out there, not what's rumor, but what John is whatever is given that inclination of what's going on. And John would have been a little bit more covert if there was something else ominous going on at the time.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Huh?
I agree with that totally. Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like, you read the article, he doesn't sound like he's too upset about anything. He's looking forward again to getting back to the England, working with Paul again. He's also talking about them starting a new film in January.
Right.
So he wanted to get back and, get to work with the Beatles. It sounded that way to me. So the very last article we have is another KYA beat. And we have that photograph for you.
Okay, I'm going to go back here again. I just went off of this thinking wasn't sure if we were coming right back, but let me go back to share again.
That's all right. Take your time. No problem.
Yep, guys, bear with me. This is it's new to me recording, and now it's new to me going in and out of doing something like this to share screen on a second time. Okay, where'd it go?
You're doing a fine job, Ariane. Really. Doing a great job.
I think I need to minimize that. Okay, number 3.
Yes, that's the one.
KYIB.
So again, this is the San Francisco little news magazine, newspaper. And of course, this is December 3rd, 1966, and there's an article, the Beatles are splitting. But this is also rumored and denied. But if you open up, there's a nice article in here with a picture of Paul. And we have that photograph of Paul.
I don't think I put that one over into this. Do you have it on your desk? Stop sharing. Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. This one?
That's the one. Yes. That's the one. So, this is a picture of him probably at the end of August during the American tour.
Yeah.
California.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like that one interview in that mode of that same one interview that was out in LA.
Right, which was his last interview here in the United States. Their last interview here in the United States. So the article reads, Paul McCartney and his fellow Beatles haven't been doing any group work since their last U.S. tour, but individually, all but Ringo are keeping themselves quite busy. John is, of course, making a movie. George is growing a mustache and learning to play the sitar. Ringo is playing with his baby boy. And Paul, ? Rumor has it he is the voice behind Donovan in Mellow Yellow.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, Paul, ? It's rumored that he is the voice behind Donovan's Mellow Yellow. But there again, where is he?
Right.
So,
and that was supposedly recorded at EMI. Paul and Donovan doing that song. I don't think there's any video verification like they had been for if it was a Beatles recording session.
right. He apparently he was just in the studio.
Yeah, they
met
were.
up with Donovan, played the tambourine, and had a good time.
Yeah.
So we could, again, those are just stories. Are they true? Who is it? Still remains a question. But that article was from December 3rd, 1966. So we over here in the United States, we still didn't know what was going on with them in London. And again, he was very popular, and these guys were followed everywhere they went. People knew where they were most of the time. And, Paul would be out and about, and people would say, oh, I saw him here, there, and everywhere. So, and there's just not. So that's what really piques my interest as to where he was.
Yeah. And that was something you really delved hard into as far as the rumors and where that took them, the journey, your beginning of a journey into finding out your investigative reasoning, what's going on.
Yeah, and it took several years to develop. It takes time to find, the original articles, to try to piece together the pieces. And I'm still searching. I'm still looking.
Right.
And there's many articles out there. It's just trying to find them.
Right.
And these papers are so fragile that you don't want to take them out too much, because they are decaying and rotting and all that. So I'm trying to take good care of them and do that. But I want it out there and to share with the audience, the findings, and that is documented now out there. So we can forward.
And this is what leads us to go along with the event that happened was in November, because there's things that are out there that are leading to that. It's just that there's no footage, there's no pictures, there's no, like you said, Paul usually would be out and about, and all of a sudden he's just not. So whether he's gone into seclusion, things are going on, or then the ultimate, something bad happens.
Exactly. And then we know John came back on November 6th from his trip to Spain when they finally ended shooting. And so he was here in London, probably when something happened. So,
yeah.
And then from there, there's this whole rumor of his death still out there. And if it started in mid-September and it keeps going.
When was the article where John stated that he couldn't wait to get back to working with Paul, getting back in the studio? That was also another one that was out there. I don't think John would have said that had something happened prior. He would have just not said anything.
Yeah, there was the Look magazine, and that was released here. It was the end of October when that was released, but he gave the interview on October 7th.
Right.
Just before his birthday. So, I could pinpoint him there. And then we had the other article of him being in Spain, saying Paul's decorating his home and writing the film score.
Right.
And that was published on the 28th, but I'm not sure exactly when he gave that interview.
Right.
So if we want to go back a week and play it safe, we could do that.
Still October.
Yeah, it's still October.
Yeah.
So from there, this rumor just keeps going. So Brian Epstein had to do something to shut the death rumor down, and that's when they used the Beatles monthly book to release a little article saying, the rumor was false. And that was in February 1967. It was the first attempt to shut down the rumor. And they kind of said, oh, there was a rumor that Paul died in a car accident on January 7th on some icy roads, but, he's fine. He's at his home in Cavendish, and he's safe and sound, and the car is in the garage, no harm done. So that was the first attempt to shut it down. And then, again, in the Beatles monthly book, April of 1967, there was an editor's note in that book where it said that from now on, they're only going to publish up-to-date photographs of the Beatles and no more of the old photographs. So it was a way to start weaning Paul's image out to keep the updated Paul going.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was sitting there when you started saying about January 7th.
Mm-hmm.
The updated Paul had a party at his house, supposedly, which had that car then possibly, the person that was driving it that was not him wrecking it because of drugs on icy roads or whatever. I think that was the Mini Coupe, right?
Yes. The Mini Cooper was given to Paul in 1965 by Brian Epstein. He bought each one of the Beatles a Mini Cooper, and Paul got this dark green color Mini Cooper.
Hunter green.
Yeah. And that was the one that was in that accident.
Right. And then there was in the beginning of February, which I think is what started Brian's coming out and saying that there's nothing going on, Paul's okay, blah, 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 was the article in the Sun. But it seems to me, if I remember correctly, and I don't have anything in front of me, so I'm trying to remember this, that the Sun article was planted. It ran for like 4 days in a row or in sequence there, that was adding fuel to the fire. And then it was yanked. And then Brian came out with his statement, while they were at the same time using Tara Brown's car as a picture of something happened, to Paul, but it was Tara Brown's car. So it was a little odd, but yeah, I think I've heard that was a planted article to bring the rumor out, but then to also keep it quiet at the same time, and Brian coming around and shutting it down.
Right. You're absolutely right. I can't agree. I can't argue.
We want to say, folks, we can't make this stuff up. It's like we've heard this before, but it's the oddities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, finally, 3 years later, the rumor comes to the United States. 3 years later.
3 years later.
Right. So it started, as far as I can pinpoint so far, it started, let's see, let me check my chart here. At Drake University, when D'Antonia Brown attends a party and he tells everybody, hey, he heard this rumor that Paul McCartney died in a car accident. So that was on September 12th, 1969 at Drake University. And then it kind of...
September 12th. Such a strange date. 3 years to the day from the Monkees TV show stating that Paul had died.
Yes, you're right. I mean, that didn't click.
Yeah, September 12th. My granddaughter's birthday. That number sticks in my head. September 12th, 3 years. That's odd that it would be on that exact date that would just pop up at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, how did Mr. Brown find out about it? I don't know that yet.
I don't know. What did he came out and say?
Well, he was just at a party at the college, and he said that he heard a rumor that Paul McCartney died in a car accident.
Back in 66.
back in '66.
And that is then what spurred the compulsion for all the college students to start listening to the lyrics?
Right. Right.
Of which there is a voluminous amount of clues in these albums. Their last, how many albums was that? 5, 6?
6 albums.
Yeah. Lots of it's. I don't think it seems like almost every song, if not every album, has multiple clues in them. If people sit there and look at it that way, analyzing them, looking at it for the messaging, and not just for the song being a song.
Right. And Ringo Starr, in his song "Choose Love," he said that the long and winding road is more than just a song.
Right.
So it makes you kind of take a moment and say,
yeah,
that's interesting. Thank you. What do you mean? It's more than just a song.
It's more than just a song. They're all more than just a song.
Right. So that was on September 12th, and then on September 17th, Drake University student Tim Harper then releases an article in the school newspaper. He was a student journalist at the time. And he releases, "Is Beatle Paul McCartney dead?" And then it just kind of blossoms from there, where John Summer and 4 of his frat brothers, they heard the Paul is dead rumor at some parties. Now, John Summer, at that time, he goes on and he does radio shows, talking about it. So he gets involved with some of his friends in the rumor, trying to find out, what happened to him, if the rumor was true or not. So, and that kind of was the idea between when we were writing the book,
Right.
The Shadow of the Bassman. It was how were we going to, tell the story of how the rumor got to the United States, and how it blossomed at the college campuses. Right. And it wasn't just the college campuses; it was also going around the high schools.
Right.
Also. So I mean, it's just
because Beatles were everywhere, all age groups.
Great. So then we had the release of Abbey Road.
That's how we ended up incorporating the characters into The Shadow of a Bassman to bring about how that rumor started and what was going on in the college campuses, and how the rumor was going spread through the country.
Right, and that's our characters, Matt, Sam, and Luke. So yeah, and their journey to find the truth also. And they come back in the sequel.
Yeah.
So then we had the release of Abbey Road on September 26th. And, by that time, people are wanting to know what are the clues in that album. So, because that wasn't released yet.
Yeah, that album was supposed to be released before the Let It Be album, and it got switched somehow. I forget, but...
Right, and the original name was going to be Everest. Everest,
yeah.
Okay. Moving on, but they decided not to go to Mount
things
Everest.
That make you go,
And they decided not to go to Mount Everest and walk across Abbey Road, and that's where we get Abbey Road from. But it's a great idea, actually. So then 2 weeks later, on October 12th, that's when Tom Zarsky calls up Russ Gibb, the Detroit radio show host, and asked him if he knew about the rumor about Paul McCartney's death. So with Russ Gibb being very popular radio host at the time in Detroit, you got thousands of people now listening in to this radio show, and they're calling in, panicking. they're showing up, at the studios, and they really want to know if the rumor was true or not. So that fueled the rumor even more. So people were really panicking. And, these guys meant everything to millions of people. I mean, they, they all have a certain something.
Right. Well, and everybody has their favorite Beatle. And they attracted different groups of people based on their own persona, their charisma individually, as well as the group.
Right. So, this would spur panic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So apparently the week of the 12th through the 18th, and I can't pinpoint the exact date, but it's in that week, the 12th to the 18th, when there was a sighting of, I will call him Billy.
Yeah.
At a nightclub in London. Okay, and that was in a paper. It was in one of the Chicago papers when they finally broke about the rumor, which was a week later. But in this article, it said that, oh, hey, I just saw Paul, at the club a week ago. Well, that would take us to the week of the 12th or the 18th, even though the article wasn't published until October 22nd, I believe it was. I think it was October 22nd.
Right.
So what gets kind of confusing here is you have this supposed sighting of Paul at a club in London, but he's supposed to be up in Scotland for 2 months because Linda just had their baby daughter, Mary, and he is spending time up in Scotland, enjoying family life. So when reporters were in London asking, where's Paul? Well, then they were saying, oh, yeah, well, he's here. He's in London. He was at a club. Well, that's not true. He should have been up in Scotland. So you have this mixing going on of a lot of confusion of where he is. And I'll go into more detail about that because it gets really strange. I just want to finish up here about October of 1969. So we have, again, Michigan student Fred LaBar. He publishes his McCartney Dead, New Evidence Brought to Light. And so that was going on in Michigan.
And those were flying around the campuses, all those articles.
Right. And they're just being picked up from college to college to college.
Yeah.
And then October 21st, New York DJ Roby Young broadcasts his Paul is Dead rumor. And Roby Young, he was very popular in New York.
Right.
His radio show went even into Canada. So, right. And while he was on air, he was fired for it. While he was on air for announcing the rumor. And, thousands of people were calling into the radio station panicking. And they got overloaded.
Right. He ended up saying at the end of the broadcaster, before he actually got taken off, I believe, just remember, folks, you heard it from me first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That there is something more to this.
So he actually, at that point, was already, if he wanted somebody to remember that you heard it from him, he's obviously already in the tank. This has happened. It's a truthful rumor. Why would you say that?
Oh, yeah. Exactly. I think the main DJs that we talk about, I think they knew.
They knew. They might have known 3 years prior.
Yeah.
They were just waiting for somebody to give them a reason to bring it out and make that statement, in my opinion.
I agree with that. Yeah. They're waiting for some event to be able to bring that out and say that. Yeah, I agree. Totally. So Roby, he ends up getting fired on air. So on October 22nd, we have Billy. He arrives at Glasgow Airport and he flies into London. And he's photographed by Harry Moles. So again, he's photographed in Glasgow when he's supposed to be in London a week
Right.
earlier at a pub. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
He can
yeah.
be at two places at once. Okay.
Happens a
So
lot.
again on let's see. Just trying to review my quick notes here. On the 23rd, ABC nightly co-anchor Howard Smith reports the rumor. And then Chicago Today American reports Beatle live while living in London. So by the 22nd, we have the rumor they're trying to shut it down by now.
Yeah.
Because it's going around the college
Getting
campus.
legs and traction, and they want it squelched.
It's now hit the major networks, and now they're trying to shut it down. So
Right.
I've got it where they're trying to shut it down on October 22nd with this report from Chicago Today American reporting that Paul is alive and well living in London. Well, wasn't he up in Scotland? I'm just saying.
Yeah. He was alive and well living up in Scotland.
And then news anchor from ABC Evening News, Frank Reynolds, reports that Paul McCartney is alive and well also. So both happening on October 22nd. So I think I pinpointed
They got the what do we call it? The MSM main line. This is the tagline for the night. Everybody make sure you report this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, that was a tag. And then, okay, so we got the 23rd where Howard Smith reports the rumor. And on the 24th, Harry Moles, the photographer that caught Paul up in Glasgow airport, made front page news of the Chicago Today American with that photograph. And then Sunday, October 26th, Billy does his interview for Life magazine. Wait a minute. So on the 26th, he's up in Scotland on his farm. And he gets caught by Life magazine reporters.
I know everybody which one you're going to.
He throws muddy water at the reporter.
Kicks him out of the front door. Yeah.
Kicks him out. And then chases him down in his Land Rover to apologize for throwing muddy water at him. And then he grants them their interview that they want.
Right.
And it basically just to prove that, hey, I'm alive and well in Scotland. But wait a minute, I was supposed to be in London 2 days ago. But before I was in London, I was in Scotland. And then a week before that, I was in London. But I was supposed to be in Scotland with my family, raised, with my new daughter. What? So we have this whole mix.
I'm going, my head's spinning. Is everybody else's head spinning? It's just like, okay.
Okay, let's recap.
But it is funny. It is funny when you sit there and think about a reporter showing up on your farm and you're knocking on your door. And I can just see Billy picking up the bucket of water and saying, get the out of here. Splat.
Exactly.
Oh.
Right. But don't forget, he was actually in London.
So who was that masked man throwing muddy water at the reporters, telling them to get the hell out of off his property? Oh. Who was it? Yeah.
So just to quickly recap, because it's really confusing. Somewhere between the 12th and the 18th, Billy is seen in a pub in London. And then on the 22nd of October, he's in Glasgow airport catching a flight to London. And then on the 26th, he's on this farm with an interview with Life magazine,
Right.
throwing muddy water at them.
And again, in these dates, they're exactly 3 years from the previous, because the September 12th date, as we mentioned, was when it aired on the Monkees in 66. And in October 22nd in 66, now I might be off a couple days, but isn't that around the time that he had gone to see John in Spain or Paris?
Yeah, that was the 12th through the 15th, I think it was.
But I mean, it's
Need
like,
to check the calendar.
yeah, okay. And then that's at the same time the Arabian that we discussed last week, that there was the masquerade party where we believe Billy was impersonating Paul and was as an Arabian. But it's just funny to me. It's just funny to me that these seem to be lining up exactly 3 years, 3 years, 3 years.
Yes,
It means nothing. It's just hitting me as it being odd.
it is. It is. I agree. It's almost a mirror.
Yeah. It's a mirror of what actually happened in 66, because that's when we think Paul was murdered and replaced. And now we're in 69 where the rumor's breaking and it's actually starting to come about, and it's like you said, mirroring the same time frame.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know why, the rumor didn't start a little earlier in the
Yeah.
spring, but no, everything always falls in the September, October, November area.
Right.
Yeah. Very strange. So I guess if you play into the numerology, maybe it has something to do with it, but
Yeah.
I don't know much about numerology to make a judgment on that. But November of 1969, we have on the 7th, we have Life magazine releases their article saying Paul is alive and well. And of course, we should know the cover of that, where he's got, Linda with him and his two daughters with him, shepherd's hook. And
right, that's the one with Mary sort of tucked in as being the baby and holding the hook, and Heather's standing there on the side. Am I right? It's a cover picture.
Yeah, it's the cover picture. And then when you open it up and you put it up to the light, you can see that car
running right through his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody has that Life magazine article, I mean, that'd be really a great one. Just sit there and hold that photograph up to the light and see what's going on the other side, the imagery.
Yes.
And everybody, okay, does that mean that happened? No, but does that just sort of make you think, what the heck? Yeah. And you just said it again, November 7th. November 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. We know that in that frame in 66 is when we believe the Beatles, John, George, and Paul, or John, George, and Ringo might have been told, because that's when the accident happened. Suppose the actual occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 years later, again, November 7th is that article coming out.
Yeah, saying he's alive.
Yeah.
You're right. So it's definitely, this was an attempt to shut down the rumor in the United States. Like I said, it started on October 22nd with, major networks saying, oh no, he's alive and well. It's all right. But when you actually look at the articles and you read and you try to pinpoint, like where he was, the whole time, the whole 2 weeks of October is very confusing.
Right.
He says he was up there for 2 months and then he came back to London when the rumor broke. But we still had Billy, up there until the 26th of October when he met up with Life magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of confusion going on, and that's what you do when you want to cover up something.
Yeah.
Avoid something.
Right. Throw out a lot of different components to confuse everything. It's just, that's all there is to it. It's just a cluster.
And that's with any major event that goes on. They throw out a lot of misinformation. They confuse the facts and create this whole mess.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's
Too
going
many
on.
alternative storylines going on to make any one of them factual.
Right. So then the last one we have is November 30th, 1969, when F. Lee Bailey, who was a very prominent attorney,
Yes.
he did a TV show, and it's called Paul McCartney, The Complete Story Told for the First and Last Time. And he basically set up a courtroom like setting, and he had guests come on where he cross-examined them. He's an attorney.
Yeah.
So there's not any footage out there of complete footage of the TV show. But what we do have is, I found in my research, you can find little snippets of it.
You're right.
And he did have a sound engineer on there, and he made it very clear that the backmasking that the Beatles did was intentional. It was done in the studio.
It was not done as a fluke that you just ran the record backwards and that just appeared because of the way it sounded. That sound engineer, if I remember right, said it takes a lot of different things, components to make that happen, that it just doesn't appear like that. Yeah. Think about that. And there's a lot of backmasking. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's several.
Yeah, there are. The White Album is really good for that, the backmasking, and that was released in '68. So
yeah, anybody that's never and doesn't know how to do backmasking and wants to play with their albums or a recording of any kind, you can now download an app to reverse speech. I forget what the actual app was called. So you could play that on there and get it to possibly do the backward gibberish where all of a sudden something pops up that says Paul is dead. Miss him. Oh,
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. So they had a sound engineer in that TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Their manager, Alan Klein, also appeared, and he basically said the Beatles did not need to do a hoax like this.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't care about that. They didn't need that kind of publicity to sell records. They were still very popular.
And so everybody knows, if they are not familiar, that was the counter argument, that the blowback that the Beatles got was, oh, you started this rumor about Paul being dead because you wanted to increase your sales. The number one band in the world, and for 8 years, 6 years, whatever, they needed to increase their sales. No, that's just bunk. But that's what was out there, that in '69, when they're about ready to break up, they're going to increase their sales with a rumor. Please spare me.
They didn't need that kind of publicity.
They didn't need that kind of publicity. In actuality, that was the kind of publicity they didn't need.
Right. They
didn't need to draw attention to this, what they had done or participated in.
Right. And they never cared about that kind of stuff anyways.
Right.
Either, what sold, and that was fine with them.
Right.
And they knew there was going to come a time when they're not going to be popular anymore. And, they were expecting.
Well, they expected that the first year. We don't know if we're going to be in or out in a few months from here. That was, George and Paul both had said that several times.
Right. They were just gonna,
They were just going
go
with
with
the
the
flow.
flow. And then when it ended, and then, they'll
Yeah,
figure out something else to do.
right.
They were very calm about that. They didn't really worry about that.
Right. I don't think they were sitting there strategizing, saying, okay, we're going to put all these clues from Sergeant Pepper and the White Album and so on. And then 3 years later, we're going to come out with this rumor so we can increase sales. That's just not
Not a good marketing strategy, I
no.
don't.
No.
So, dear.
People
then
have to use some common sense when they're thinking about, and I think that's a lot of times people have to realize that. Use discernment when you're looking at this stuff. Use common sense. Is that something somebody would do?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Interrupt.
Nope.
Back to the article.
You are fine. You're fine. Not a problem. So, do you remember Dr. Henry Trudy?
Yeah. Well, we're talking about Bailey. Is Bailey, was Truvy in that part with Bailey? No. We're talking about the court mock trial scene.
Yeah, that was the two main ones. Was Alan Klein saying that the Beatles didn't need to do this for hope,
and Peter Asher.
Peter Asher.
I just wanted to, while we're talking about it, you had Alan Klein, and you had the sound engineer, but then you had Peter Asher also participating in this little mock trial thing going on.
What do you know of Peter Asher?
What do I know of Peter Asher? That he's Jane Asher's brother. He's the other part of Peter and Gordon. He had songs written by Paul McCartney while he lived in his house on the room opposite him on the third floor of whatever that street was. Yeah. Somebody who knew Paul and knows Billy. So what did he say in that article thing? When Bailey was questioning him.
Well, basically, what it comes down to is no matter what, Peter was going to defend Paul, whether this was a hoax or not.
Yes. And I think Bailey set him up perfectly. Do you know this person? And do you know this person? And would you lie for either? And it was just like, yes, I know them. I know them both, I think is what his words were, right?
I believe that's correct, yeah.
So we go back to some masterfully speaking terminology of not, what is that? You're not lying, but there's lots of shades there.
Right, you're not lying. You're just going to defend him no matter what he does.
No matter what he does. It's no matter which one, both of them. I know them both. And yeah, I'm going to defend them both.
Then Peter said, well, that's very unfair way of ending this. Well,
the truth isn't supposed to be fair. It's supposed to be the truth.
Right. And there is a snippet of this show. If anybody has the book, Turn Me On Dead Man.
Yeah.
You don't see it.
Yeah.
Anyways, got it.
You got it.
There's a little bit about this in there.
And we also have a little bit about it in The Shadow of a Bass Man, where we do have that back and forth quoted, referenced. There's a lot of references in this book. While I have it open here, I didn't have it tagged, but I'm just going to share, we have a lot of footnotes, a lot of references for people. And that particular conversation is in the book.
Yes. Yes, it is. It's a very good book.
It's a very
I,
good book.
well, I
It
mean,
is a very
honestly,
good
Trivia
book.
on Dead Man was, I found it to be a fascinating read, and it was one of the earlier
Oh,
books I read.
okay.
I
Yeah,
mean, we're going back 8 years, 9 years or
right,
so. So it was one of the research books that I read. Of course, I read everything. I tried to read everything
right.
I got my hands on. So, but yeah, that's in there. And there's also, I found a CD one time long ago, long time ago. I found a CD where they have parts of that Effley Bailey show on there,
Right.
but it's only, you can only get little bits of it. So that's all that's out there that I found so far. So keep looking.
Right. And there again, if anybody has this stuff and wants to share it with us, the shadow of a baseman at gmail.com.
Yes, we're always looking for
We're
new
always
resources.
looking for information. So
Yeah. Yes. So Henry Trudy, he was a professor, and he did voice prints of Yesterday, Penny Lane, and Hey Jude. And this
right.
was released in 1969 because he wanted to put an end to the rumor to see if it was true or not. You
Yeah.
know, and his conclusion from the voice prints that it was not the same man.
Right.
3 different voices.
Count them. 3. I have a theory on that. I don't know. I think our theory matches up a little bit on that, right?
I think so. Yes. Go ahead.
Right. So yesterday we understand, and that's Paul. Hey Jude is Billy. Definitely those two voices were singular. Penny Lane, Paul wrote Penny Lane. He always had a recorder with him. So when he was creating music, lyrics or whatever, he could play it in his car. I think I've read articles where he used to do that in his car as well. So when he would compose, then he could go back into the studio or go back into it later and change it. So I believe there was recordings of work that was not produced as of yet when he passed. Penny Lane had been laying tracks down, I believe, and his voice was there. And I think they overdubbed Billy with Paul, and that's where you're getting 3 different voice prints. Paul, a blend, and Billy.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Paul was working on Penny Lane, and I think
Right.
he was almost done with it. And it was an unfinished song.
Yeah. And we wrote about that song in The Shadow of a Bass Man. Had a conversation going on with John and Billy, which some of our readers have told us that sounds very much like what they could hear going on in the studio. John telling Billy to leave that song alone. There's nothing wrong with Polly's bass line, you know. So yeah, that was one of those interesting songs, and it just happens that that was one that they selected for Truvy to analyze. I wish there was more songs analyzed back then before manipulation started happening.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. I mean, he probably more than likely, I'm almost certain he had the original recordings.
Yeah.
Where today we have remastered,
And
remastered.
and the original recordings. What happened to them, Anne, and when did it happen?
Oh, they just started. Yeah, that
Yeah,
started November 8th, 1966.
November
They
8th,
started
1966.
getting rid of Beatle master tapes.
Now, you have the number one band in the world, supposedly still, and at that time. Why in the world you record everything? You recorded your sessions. They actually are the beginning of MTV. We have videos of them doing songs and different things. Look, even Rain and Paperback Writer. I mean, those are outside staged or whatever. like an MTV video would have been 10 years after the fact or more. There's all this information on what they do, and they're going to get rid of master tapes for the Beatles. Why in the hell would you do that? To get rid of Paul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, John said in the early 1970, when the Red Album and the Blue Album were released with the greatest hits, that he was totally upset with it. He thought it was rubbish because it was a remastered album from remastered tapes.
Right.
It wasn't from the original tapes to remaster them. And I understand, by this time they were going from mono to stereo.
Yeah. Had John lived, I wondered how anthology, just think about that, all that and remastered again.
Yeah, if you really want to know what Paul, sounded like, get the original vinyl album and get a little record player, and you will be amazed how different it sounds from the CDs that you have today or what's on all the music sites. So different.
Vinyl has come back.
Yeah. Yes, it has.
So that brings up some interesting conclusions with having somebody analyze the sound analysis the way he did. And I know we both have seen the actual analysis that's done, and it's very, for a layperson who's not aware, but you can still see the tracking of how the voice recordings go up and down, and the differences in their sound waves. I don't know the terminology for it. I don't even have it up to look at it. So do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He had many different levels, if I remember right, and I haven't looked at that for a while. He had many different levels of, I don't even know what to categorize them as. The vibrations, the this, that, that there were different components.
Like wavelengths.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the wavelengths and stuff. But he had them broken down into different, like there was this one, and then there was another one, and then there was another one. So there wasn't just like one track comparison. It was multiple factors that went into those analysis. I just don't remember what they were called.
Yes. So I think that's a very good analysis that they did back then in 1969.
Right.
It'd be hard, I think, to get any now without the original recordings.
The actual original tape is what you're
just like it's getting hard to find original pictures of Paul.
Right.
You got to go back to, the
you got to go back to the original publications where pictures were actually produced and not morphed or photoshopped, stretched.
Right. And the one picture that we have of Paul today, that was a snapshot I took right from the newspaper.
Right. That was published beforehand. So
not manipulated at all.
Right.
That was just taken straight from the newspaper.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah. So right. That's kind of wraps it up for the rumor for today.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Okay. Shall we continue?
Somebody came into the house and wanted to know if I was still on the air. I'm still on the air. Yeah, so I think that's where we're going to leave it for today. Do you have anything else in that regards to tying any loose ends?
No. We'll talk another time about how the rumor came from London to the United States. Because we do have a gap there. But I just wanted, for now, just point out the rumor started in London and how it started here in the United States, kind of how it broke here in the United States. And we have this little gap of time of 2 years that we can fill in.
3 years.
Oh, well, yeah, 3 years. I was thinking
All right.
spring of 67, but okay.
Yeah, spring of 67, that gap. Yeah. And we did have Billy going to Africa at that time too, where we think some things were going on. But we can get into that whole episode on another show. We're coming up on an hour. So
Okay.
we're
Yeah,
going to
let's
try and
wrap it
be
up.
mindful of everybody's time, that we don't want to have really long videos going, because
Yeah.
we'll be doing this forever.
Right.
Right. We've already gotten to the point where we know that we're doing the sequel to The Shadow of a Bass Man now. And we just know this is now going to have to be a series. There's just so much.
And we look forward to doing it.
And we do.
So we found in our research just a little interesting thing about Paul and his poetry that he wrote
At a very young age.
at a very young age. You want to bring up the photograph?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Let me share that.
So
Where is my mouse?
this is from. Oh,
wait, I have to.
you're fine.
Huh?
You're fine.
Where am I fine at? I don't think I'm there. I have to click on what I'm doing.
There you go. Okay.
Nope, that's not what I
That's
want.
the notes.
That's not what I want. Back to us.
Nope.
Where did I have that at?
It's on your. Was it on your front page?
Nope, it's not there either. Nope. Let me minimize this. Sorry, guys. No, I don't have it on the front page. I don't have it on my desktop.
Oh, you had it on your desktop.
No, I think I had it in the Word document and I may have switched it off, but I will. Let me come back to turning my camera back on and getting out of the. Come on. Oh, I have to stop sharing first. I'm sorry, guys. You know, maybe I'll learn this, but then we'll end up turning into a different type of.
You're okay.
We're going to turn into a different type of format, probably, in a different way of doing the videos, because that seems like that's what everybody does. They hop around to different things, and then you have the learning curve. Well, this is my learning curve. So I don't have it up on the screen, but I can read it from our book. It is in the book on page 81.
And it's from a little booklet. It's called The Paul Story. I have no information whatsoever as to what magazine this came out of.
Oh, I do have
what
that picture.
year it was released. I just don't have that information. It wasn't with the booklet. But I think it was from 1964 though. So anyways, we found this poem and we wanted to share it with you today. And it's from our book, The Shadow of the Bass Man.
Oh, shoot. Okay, never mind. I thought I might have had that picture on my wall, but I don't. Okay. Okay, so yeah, from The Shadow of a Bass Man. You know, I think I'm going to read the paragraph above it and into it. As the music was playing softly in the background, John walked over to the bookcase and opened the bottom door. Paul had numerous photo albums stored in the bookcase. John sat on the floor and began looking at the life of his best mate. He laughed and cried over these memories for several hours. Amongst the items was a shoebox, and as he opened it, he found inside some mementos that Paul kept from his childhood. One scrap of paper intrigued him among the small toys and family photographs. It was a poem Paul wrote when he was a young teenager. There was a man up on a tree who moved some coal from A to B. Per hour, 6 yards of coal fresh cubed, and then this man became quite rude. Blast that silly coal, he said. I'd rather stick it on your head. If you're able, do it faster, you silly, rotten, old school master. John laughed at Paul's poem. He knew Paul struggled in school with math. He had a hard enough time adding and subtracting, let alone trying to accomplish advanced mathematics. That just cracks me up. But I mean, that just goes to show, and I can't remember, but was Paul 11 in that? Was this an 11-year-old Paul?
Very young, probably
Yeah.
between 11 and 13.
13. That's sort of where I was thinking the time frame was. That just shows the lyricist, the abilities. He might not have been good at math, but he was very good when it came to English and literature, Shakespeare, and obviously writing poetry.
That's right. And music.
And music.
Yes. So, so next week we're going to have probably some guests on.
Right.
And so that'll be our next show. And we're going to have more shows coming up, more information to share with you on the Shadow of the Bassman. And we look forward to it. And if you have any questions, we're open to it. Find us on Facebook, The Shadow of the Bassman. Also, Marianne Howard and Ann Walsh. You can find me. And we have Gmail, The Shadow of the Bassman at gmail.com. We welcome all questions. And
if anybody still would like to look at purchasing the book, it is on Amazon.com and Kindle Share and Kindle, and it's there for purchase.
And we thank you for tuning in and spending part of your day with us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate our viewers and listeners. And we would like to leave you with something that Paul said. Paul once said, "Remember me with a smile." So give someone a smile today. Thank you.
Yep. Ta, Ann.
Ta.
Hey, everybody.